Alright, so the next lecture capture video I'm going to present to you guys is involving what are called inequality. Okay, so these particular involve metric equalities, but they also involve other types of equalities that you guys have been told to memorize some. But this is the definition of it. An equality takes the same measurement into different units. Okay, so the same numerical value that was measured, but it's going to be in a different unit. So the value still is the same in the other unit, but it's just going to be in a different value because why? You have two different units going on. So to do that, there has to be a relationship between those two units. So an equality can be written using a relationship between two types of units. It could be metric or SI metric or US metric, for example. So remember the word equality, equal. This equals that, okay? Because an example of an equality is defined here, okay? It says that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, okay? But we also know the following, okay? Before we go to this one, let's just go back to our previous example of a kilo, okay? So that's why it's important to know these prefixes. So what does a kilo mean? The meaning behind a kilo, okay, means a factor of 1,000, okay? So the symbol we use for that is just K, okay? So let's say we're talking about mass here, okay? So let's say if I had here 1 kilogram, okay, that would be equivalent to having 1,000 grams, okay? So the prefix kilo that I told you guys before we went over is referring to the numerical value. Now, it's grams and grams here because what type are we doing here measurements-wise? It's mass, okay? So they have grams and grams, but the value is this kilo. So the meaning behind a kilo, again, means a factor of 1,000, okay? So you guys have heard of these other ones where now you have, say, like 1, say, meter is equivalent to, say, 1,000 millimeters. Okay, so now when you're asked to kind of memorize, to understand how this works out, it's the following. Is where did this come from originally? Well, originally we did with the fact that what does a millimeter mean? So let's say if I had this, of 1 millimeter. So if you remember, go back to that prefix list. What does a milli refer to? Well, it is 0.001 meters. So again, here's the milli, okay? And it corresponds to this numerical value of 1,000th, okay? 0.001. Meter is a unit we're being here with this length. All right, but how do we get this to look like this one? Because this is the one that most students are asked to memorize. This is the one that we do want to be aware of, but it actually comes from this thing, okay? And the reason why is how the actual values are written, and this is how we're set up. If you remember what 1,000 really refers to is this. It's kind of like a ratio. It's 1,000th. So it's 1 over 1,000. Because there are 3 zeros and 1,000. That's why it's 10 to the minus 3. So the meter still stays. And that's equal to 1 millimeter. Okay, now, if we do a little bit of algebra here, let's multiply both sides by 1,000. So then this 1,000 cancels out. 1 times 1,000, this is what we get now. We get this new, it's kind of looks like a new relationship, but it really isn't. It's just been rewritten. That 1 meter is equivalent to 1 times 1,000, 1,000. And units, what do we got? Millimeters. See? So this is exactly what you guys already asked to memorize. But again, instead of memorizing, if you understand how you come about by this, by actually understanding the meaning behind these prefixes, that really goes a long way. Okay? So that's how it works out. So here's another one. 1 meter is equivalent to 100 centimeters. The reason why is because it's what the meaning behind a centimeter. It's 1 over 100, so that's 100th of a meter. Okay, so when you do the same thing, multiply both sides, you get 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. Again, this is more easier to deal with because you're dealing with these numbers in this form, not these standard notation values, which have these, decimal numbers given like this, which is a little bit hard to memorize. But it's the meaning behind this, okay? Now you notice here, 1 meter is equal to 1,000 millimeters. 1 meter is also equivalent to 100 centimeters. So I can say the following then, that 1,000 millimeters will be equivalent to 100 centimeters. Okay, and if I divide both sides by 100, so this is gone, that becomes 1. We get rid of our 2 zeros here, now we have 10. So the following could say that we have 10 millimeters is equivalent to 1 centimeter. So we just come up with another type of defined relationship between a what though? A centimeter and a millimeters. Okay. Others that you guys have heard of course, that 1 inch is exactly equal to 2.54 centimeters. Okay. A U.S. metric one, that 1 inch is equivalent to 12 inches is equivalent to 1 foot. Okay. 3 feet is equivalent to, say, 1 yard. Okay. Right, and so on and so forth. Okay. So here's another defined relationships here. But that's the concept behind what a metric equality means. Okay. The last part is this whole idea behind this equality, which means really unity. That's what a unit comes from, it's unity. So for example, if I have my relationship I had before, that 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. Okay. If I divide both sides now by 1 kilogram, 1 over 1 is 1, kilograms, kilograms. Well, those cancel out. Anytime you have a unit upstairs, downstairs, in a ratio or division format, they will cancel out. That's how you get rid of your units to begin with, which will set up for another video capture lesson for that. We convert units. So this whole thing becomes just 1. That's unity right there. It's 1. The ratio is 1,000 grams over 1 kilograms. If I go back to it again, equals 1,000 grams. But this time I divide both sides by 1,000 grams. And notice what happens here. 1,000 grams over 1,000 grams, well, they all cancel out. That becomes 1. You have unity again. It's unit. The ratio is 1 kilogram over what? 1,000 grams. That's where you keep the same numerical value no matter what happens. Whatever you weigh out. If you measure out 5 grams worth of something, okay, but you want to know what that value would be, say, in kilograms, the 5 value is still there. Okay, it's just giving in a different unit. Okay, so that's why the value looks different, but it does mean exactly the same because of unity. 1 and 1. Okay, so these right here are called convergent factors. That's the leading part here, going from equality to convergent factors. For every one equality, for every defined relationship we have here, you always get 2 convergent factors. So here's my 1 defined equality relationship. 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. Well, I get 2 convergent factors, which these are the ones we'll be using when we start using in problem solving, setting up these things. Okay? All right, so thank you, and we'll come up with our next lesson.